Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and, well, more movies. I'm D-Man, and once again, joined by CP. CP, how are you doing today?
Dude, I'm back, and I'm doing great.
Well, it's glad to have you back, because after doing a solo episode, I realized just how hard this is. And it's been a while since I've done an actual solo episode of a podcast, and it's hard to carry the whole show without, a lot of a lot of thinking, trying to give yourself a pause. Sometimes you just want to breathe.
Yeah. No, it is definitely very hard, and thank you for stepping in and making sure we got an episode out for our fans.
Yeah,
So
hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. I know
I did. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I came up with some topics that I thought were interesting to me, so it was fun to discuss those, but it's always more fun when you're here. I like to get your feedback, your pushback, and sometimes it's got to go to an argument. So if that's the case, we'll duke it out. But any news, any new things going on for CP?
No, just living the dream.
All
Living
right.
the
Well,
dream.
let's go ahead and jump into our shout outs then, as we do at the top of every episode. So first up, I want to give a shout out to my friend Jen and her husband Alan, because for whatever algorithmic social media reason, our podcast showed up in her feed. So she ended up checking out. Yeah, she checked it out and enjoyed the show. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving us a shot, for listening in, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast. So that's awesome. Very exciting. And she said she enjoyed it so far. So that was fantastic. So
Yay!
thank you. I wanted to give another shout out to my mom. Mom, I love you. And my mom said we are doing a great job. So
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, she seems to really enjoy the show, which is great. And next up goes to at Giraffe65, Ivor, who said, "This is one of the best dad movies," referring to your review of Air. So CP, you want to expand on that a little bit? I mean, you kind of did a little social media reel, and we got a sense of what you were thinking, but is this a, two thumbs up, one thumb up, or thumbs down? What
This
do you
is
think?
two thumbs up. As I said, this was the best movie I've seen so far in 2023. And I still stand by that. After seeing the Mario movie, which has now made like $1 billion.
Okay. So number one so far.
It's a great story. It's got Michael Jordan, a killer 80s soundtrack, and it's just oozing with nostalgia. Like, what more do you want in a movie?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's on my list. I definitely want to see that. So hopefully I can, add my own opinion on that as well in future stuff. Something I did want to commentate on, CP, that I haven't done yet. I wanted to provide my commentary on the movie The Whale. I finally got a chance to see it. Brendan Fraser.
Oh, okay.
So I do have thoughts on that, and I'm going to put those out in a social media post, a reel, and I'll kind of dive into that a little bit. But I thought
Good.
it was interesting. It was an interesting movie, and the performance was stellar. So
Right. He's incredible. I remember walking out and I was like, this was like a horrific movie, and I'm going to eat a salad for like the next month. But damn, Brandon Fraser's so good.
yeah, it was good. So Ivor also commented. He said, "Was this showing the long director's cut? Beautiful on the big screen," referring to me going and seeing LOTR, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King in theaters. And yes, it was the director's
Oh,
cut, Ivor. It was amazing. It was 4 hours plus that I got to enjoy sitting in the theater. And it was beautiful on the big screen. Action sequences, I mean, everything just popped. And it was a fantastic experience because this was the only showing, CP, that they had at my movie theater. So it was one showing on one day at 7 p.m. That was it. So everybody else in the theater was a huge Lord of the Rings fan. You're with fans. It was awesome. You know,
dude,
at times people were cheering, clapping. It was great. I loved
I,
it.
I am so jealous of you. That sounds like an amazing screening.
Yeah. And I'm excited. I mentioned this on social media as well. And of course, all of our listeners know me by now. We have Return of the Jedi coming up next. So I'm super pumped for that. And I can't wait to see it in the theaters. I'll find a way to get there. I don't care.
Me, it's gonna be awesome. I'm so excited.
So Ivor did have one last question, and he said, "Nice. Did you tear up when everyone on screen turns to the hobbits and bows to them? I tear up every time." And so did I. Of course, I got a little tear in my eye when Aragorn is like, "My friends." you bow to no one.
You bow
And
to
he
no
bows
one.
down and everybody bows down and they stand there and it's amazing. I'm gonna tear up right now. But I won't. I swear, CP, no more crying. So next up is at dbex2486 said, thanks for the update. I'd love to hear your guys' take on what you think will possibly branch off into going forward. Keep it up, y'all. Now that is in reference to a story that I put out regarding a potential writer's strike. So I will be doing updates on social media, taking a look at what's going on with the writer's strike, some important details, some dates, kind of what's happening. We're not going to dive into it too much here because everything so far is a lot of speculation, but we may do a topic on the podcast if it comes to pass. So very interesting. And we haven't had a writer's strike since I think 07, 08. It's been a while.
That sounds. No, wasn't there a later one? I thought there was one in like 2015.
I believe because I've been reading about this, they voted to authorize a strike at that time,
but they didn't. That was when they fired the agents. Yeah, but they didn't strike, but they were everyone thought they were going to.
Yeah, they thought they were going to, but they did not end up striking that time. And I believe the strike that took place in 07, 08 was roughly around 100 days, which is quite a while, especially when you look at certain shows and things that need writers like today. So very interesting, and it could affect a lot of content. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. You can follow us at Film Comp Podcast, and that's where we'll be posting any of the news and updates and everything. So check that out there. And he went on to add, I'm not a filmmaker, but being part of yours in the past, I have some ideas. I might see you Sunday talking to UCP, so let's talk and just have fun about it. I love your pod. I watch it a lot. So just want to say thanks, man. All right. Well, Brian Ten Bosch commented, I was disappointed, referring to Dungeons and Dragons. So short review, but he saw it, which I haven't, so I can't comment on it. But Brian, thank you. Appreciate the comment. And lastly, Gary Osberg said, very solid. All That Jazz is my favorite of all time. Really solid 70s film. Only musical I truly enjoy. So, and that, I believe, CP was referring to, you posted something regarding the opening sequence, the nostalgic opening sequence.
Yes, of Air. Yep.
So
they play Dire Straits. They just have all these clips of the 80s. It's so amazing. Like, you just watch it and you're like, oh, yes, this is everything that I love.
Absolutely. So that does it for my shout out, CP. I'm going to throw it over to you. Do you have any shout outs on this episode?
Yeah, only shout out I want to actually piggyback off the one with for Derek D-Bex. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Derek.
Sunday. And he mentioned to me that he is a huge Nicolas Cage fan. Aren't we all?
Yeah, so I was going to say, absolutely.
I think for Derek, we should do an episode talking about, or at least listing out, our favorite Nick Cage movies. Because, I mean, it's Nick Cage. He's in some incredible movies. He's also in some horrible movies. And that's what makes Nick Cage so amazing.
Well, okay, here we go, real quick. So, CP, I don't know if you've seen this, and D-Bex, Derek, I don't know if you've seen this. Hopefully you have. Nick Cage just put out a new movie with Pedro Pascal, where they're like trying to write a movie in Mexico, I think.
Oh, no. You're talking about what's it? The
I know, I can't think of the name.
The unbearable weight of massive talent.
I forget what exactly what it's called.
I saw it when it came out, and it's hilarious. It's
awesome. It was so good. It's not a movie that I'm like, oh my God, this is the best movie ever made, but it's exactly what you would hope it would be. It's funny. The actors seem to have so much chemistry, which was incredible.
And he owns all the Nick Cage stereotypes. Like, he just owns it. It's amazing.
Yeah, they do homages to all of his films, or a lot of his films. Like, it's great. I really enjoyed the movie. So if you haven't had a chance, and I don't know if I got that name right for the film, but if you just go Google Nicolas Cage 2023, you'll find it. And it was awesome.
It's a lot of fun. It's a good one.
All right, CP. Well, that takes us into our first topic this week. And it's something that I found online that I was interested in when I read an article that Netflix was actually doing some live streaming. So when looking at streaming services, there's like live TV. So think like, YouTube TV or like Hulu Premium or whatever it's called, or basically like a cable channel. And then there are like live events. So
Hmm.
for this topic, I'm talking about like live events, which are normally covered by like broadcast and cable channels, right? Even up to today. So you think, I don't know, uh, sporting events, live news channels, Thanksgiving Day parade, uh, presidential debate, those type of things, right? Those are
Yeah.
like live events that we want to tune into. And they're usually on cable. So it's not something that you can often go find a live stream of online. Even though sometimes like the Thanksgiving Day parade, some of those things they might have a live stream, often it's rebroadcast after the fact, right?
Yeah.
It's not always like live. So, and that's something that I think people, many people have just given up on by cutting the cord and going exclusively to streaming. So
Hmm.
that's something that I think people, right? They're like, fine, I'll give up the live events for, 5 streaming platforms and I can watch whatever I want when I want, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So Netflix, as I mentioned, got into streaming and it was with Love is Blind. So apparently this is the second thing they've ever live streamed behind a Chris Rock comedy special back in March. So this is brand new to their platform. They have
Yeah.
never really experimented with this at all.
Hmm.
And it didn't go well. So they ended up having problems with the live stream and they ended up giving a quote saying it's almost time, the live event will start soon, and it didn't even end up starting. So they ended up recording it and then releasing it the following Monday. So they didn't get into the actual live streaming. This went, I guess, horribly. Hopefully nobody lost their job over it. But,
Hmm.
they're experimenting. It didn't go well. And I was curious, do you think Netflix and by that extension to other streaming platforms getting into this kind of promise of live events is a new avenue for these platforms? Do you think how do you feel about that?
It's so stupid. So
Okay.
stupid.
Well played. Well, I mean, the thing is, what's interesting is, especially with Netflix, I think, how do I say this? It's not what they do. It's not what they're known
Well,
for. This is kind
ex
of a
yeah, that's my thought. First of all, the Netflix business model is content all the time on your time, right? When you want it,
that's a good
how
point.
you want it. It's not a Netflix was built in the opposite of you are a slave to when some broadcaster says this is the only time you can watch something, right?
Interesting.
It was
Yeah.
democratizing your access to content. You want to binge a whole series, you want to watch some obscure movie, get Netflix. This is what we do. And they do it really, really well. I don't know why they think that they need to wade into the live, the live event thing because I just don't think it matters. We've seen other quote unquote networks air live shows. I think especially it seems like the desire for live for most content is kind of really tied into reality TV. If it's not sports or breaking news, it's some sort of reality TV related thing, it seems like, which is probably why they did it for
I mean, Love is
Love is
Blind, right?
Blind, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, so many of these shows are recorded live in a studio audience. They are broadcast after they've been edited. They're broadcast on television where it's quote unquote live, but it's not really live. And I don't know why Netflix just doesn't adopt the same model. Why do they think that we need to have this instantaneous, live stream to experience the drama of Love is Blind? I think it's stupid. I would equate it to, Spotify does a really good job of making audio. That doesn't mean that Netflix needs to wake up and say, oh my gosh, we need to get into the audio business now. No, you do video. Or an even more extreme example, the Lakers play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that there's a lot of other sports out there. That doesn't mean the Lakers need to start trying to play like frickin' soccer or hockey because other people do it. Own what you do and do it well. And Netflix, everyone in the streaming game is trying to be you. I don't know why now suddenly you're looking back at these 35, 40-year-old business model that is cable television and say, oh, they do this one thing that we can't do. Let's try and do that. It's stupid.
Well, I do get the vibe reading this article on CNN Business that one of the reasons they may be attempting to do this is because a lot of the like sports broadcast contracts, a lot of the live streaming kind of deals and contracts, rights, all of that will kind of be expiring in this next cycle or changing hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may be seeing that, like, they may be going with Love is Blind, trying to do some live broadcasting to see if they can figure out how to make that work for them. Because there are some whales out there that if you can get the rights to that, it's going to draw some eyeballs to Netflix. It's going to lock people into Netflix, right? Like if you can only get the Lakers on Netflix, you're going to have, or NBA, which would be massive. But if you could get something like that, like then you have people that are like, well, I can't not have Netflix because I watch the NBA. Like I got to see it. So I don't know. That was my vibe, was that I don't know that they've actually stated out loud that they're planning on making this a regular thing. But my intuition tells me that they're looking at these contracts and these rights and they're saying like, hey, can we get in on that? And right now it doesn't look so good, but I mean, they're just starting out. So I don't know. I mean, how would you feel if Netflix just had a totally separate tab for like live stuff? Like they move it into, how like when you're on Instagram, right? They have the home button, they have like, reels and then search and then your profile. Like what if they had a separate tab at the bottom that was just like all the live stuff? So then it's like, hey, if you want Netflix, and maybe that would even be like another thing that they could add to like the highest paid tier, right? Where it's like, hey, if you don't even want live streaming, you don't have to pay for it. But if you want it, here's what we offer. I could see where they might be able to find a way to work that in, because places like, I think right now, Apple TV is airing some MLB games. I think at various times, I think Twitter might have even aired Thursday Night Football. Prime took that over. I think Amazon Prime last season was airing Thursday Night Football. And there's just I think these companies are experimenting like with, can we get this in our arsenal?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I agree with you to the extent that yes, it does kind of go against, right, the company's identity. So to that end, I do kind of get where you're coming from, especially with Netflix in particular, because that's really what they was like, watch what you want when you want, not what's live. That's not what they were about. So I kind of get that with Netflix specifically, but I do understand why these streaming platforms may want to dive into this, because it probably could be something, obviously they would pay a lot of money to acquire the rights, but it would lock people in. And I think they might try to do it.
Well, I think it also depends. I think two other examples are, I think Roku has done a really good job of kind of implementing a live aspect of live content. And I think Peacock does a great model, but that's kind of because they have the whole legacy Comcast NBC broadcast wing that they are now integrating into the Peacock streaming mechanism. And it actually does a really good job of giving you the option between streaming content and watching what's actually happening live. For me, I just don't think that that's the Netflix brand.
Okay. I hear you. Like, again, something that I think Peacock is a great example of this is they have the exclusive rights to WWE. So WWE doesn't even do pay-per-view anymore. It's a Peacock subscription that gets you access to WWE. So it has all of their legacy content. You can watch every episode of Raw. You can watch every pay-per-view that's ever come out before. You have access to all of that. But they also air all the new live events, and you can watch them live on Peacock. So that is like, to me, that's a perfect example of, an incorporated brand where it's like, hey, we have this kind of separate channel in our hierarchy, our search hierarchy over here. Like WWE isn't really a focus on the main page, but if you're here for WWE, bam, here's all the stuff. And if there's a live event going on, you can click it and you get it right now. And I've tested it out. I have Peacock and it worked great. Thought it was fantastic. So that's a good example. I don't know. I'm interested to see what these companies do, because obviously, I think cable cord cutting and all that, like, I think cable is not really going to be around, you know, certainly not the way it was for, the past 20 years. And the only thing really keeping cable going is live TV. So when you start seeing the other side of live, which is the live TV that I mentioned, YouTube TV, that kind of Peacock model, Hulu Premium, you can see where this shift might happen. And it's like, hey, people aren't going to pay for cable anymore. They're just not going to do it. You can just get it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. And like you said, it's weird because Netflix, as its own unique brand, may not, it may not be part of their identity to do this. It's just not what they're about. And maybe Netflix, can bow out on that. But I just found it interesting that they're experimenting with it. And it's something that I think if you're a user, you should keep your eye on because, yeah, your favorite sports teams, they may end up on Netflix in the future,
Yeah.
You wouldn't think Netflix, and I've never once thought sports, but that may be what comes to pass.
Maybe they'll buy ESPN from Disney and then it will become
the
mecca of streaming sports content.
Well, even that's a good example is like Disney Plus, right? Right now, I don't think they've ever experimented with any live streaming, but they do have ESPN. So and again, they air things from ESPN, but like you said, it's after the fact. But I could see where they could incorporate that brand into like live stuff for subscribers of Disney Plus, and make that kind of a focal point of like, hey, you get full ESPN here. You don't have to have a cable, subscription to get ESPN anymore. So, but I guarantee you the reason they haven't done it, I guarantee you, is because they have contracts. They just can't. They have exclusive contracts with cable providers and they can't do it. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, to our users, I'd be interested to hear, or users, all this platform talk, to our listeners, let us know what you think. I mean, if sports, if live news coverage, presidential debates, all this stuff was to move over to these streaming platforms, is this something that you would welcome? Is this something you would love to see? Or do you think, these two things should kind of remain separate? Like, if you want that kind of live TV vibe, you should get something like YouTube TV or Hulu Premium or something like that. I will say, and this is just my 2 cents, but the way WWE has done it on Peacock, I think it works. So I could see a way for them to do that. It'd be interesting. So, CP, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I am curious to know what the discussion offline with our listeners goes like. But I just, as I said, I've said this now 3 times. I think it's very off-brand for Netflix. So I hope they have a real strategy behind it.
Sounds good. Well, I'm going to throw it over to you because you actually brought something to my attention, which was a great read. So tell us a little bit about what you found.
Well, I think a great read might be like you're overselling this a little bit right now, D-Man. So there's a great article on Collide.
I heard great.
And it's called 10 Superhero Movies Destined to Become Classics. And obviously we will throw this link up so the rest of you can see what we're doing and can read it for yourself. But essentially, the author goes through and says, look, there have been like 85 comic book movies that have come out in the last 2.5 decades. Not all of these are great. Some of them are terrible. But he puts together a list of 10 films that he believes are going to stand the test of time, evaluated based on what audiences think on these films and what critics think of these films. So, right, the audience signs off, the critics sign off. So I'm going to read what he put down. We can talk about this real quick. So this is his for you, D-Man, and for the audience. So number 10, Zack Snyder's Justice League from 2011. Or I'm sorry, 2021. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Zack Snyder's Justice League, not the
original.
Crappy version.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
I absolutely disagree.
All right. Just
like
explain why.
I don't think Justice League is going to be a classic in any way. I think Justice League has its fans and its fans will follow it, but I just don't think it's a classic the way we consider right? Like Star Wars is a classic, Wizard of Oz is a classic. I just don't think just Avengers is a classic. Like
All right.
if you're a comic book fan, you're gonna love it. Justice League, I just don't see it. I mean, I'm sorry.
Dude, you're a moron. You are a freaking moron. It is a masterpiece of cinema, and I will use the word masterpiece. What they did in 4 hours undid everything that they did wrong in the 2 hours. It's a totally different movie, and it shows that he clearly has a vision and had things to say, and was pushing the limits of the superhero film genre. So it absolutely deserves to be there, and you were wrong.
I'm not stamping classic on Justice League. There's no way.
All right, number 9, Kick-Ass from 2010.
I'll give this the stamp of cult classic. I think it has fans, but again, I just don't think it's a movie that people are literally going to be talking about when they're drinking beers 20 years from now. Kick-Ass, there's no way.
Wow. Okay.
Cult classic.
So D-Man's kind of an angry guy is what we're getting at here. Okay. How about this one? You probably have issues with this movie too. Number 8, The Batman from 2022.
Yeah, I have issues with that as well.
Anthony's going to back
it's surpassed. It's surpassed by a better Batman movie, and that's the classic. It's The Dark Knight is the classic. That's the movie that everybody will talk about. They're not going to talk about the Batman. I'm sorry.
Wow. Okay. Well, all right. Number 7. You probably hate this one too. You may remember a film called Logan from 2017.
I like this pick. I actually think Logan will stand up. I think the X-Men franchise in general is incredibly well received by comic book fans. It made a ton of money at the theaters, and Logan was not the crown jewel of the X-Men franchise, but it is probably the second best movie, third maybe depending on who you are, and for some maybe even first. But I think Logan has a special place. I think Hugh Jackman as Logan, as Wolverine, was incredible, and this was a great capper.
Okay, so number 6 is kind of in that same vein. X-Men First Class from 2011.
I'm gonna say no, and the reasoning is kind of the same with the Batman. I think X-Men has outdone itself in another place, and that's Days of Future Past.
Okay, all right. So number 5, you probably hate this movie too, since apparently you hate all movies. This is really weird. Normally, I'm the one hating things. All right, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse from 2018. Let me guess. Not going to stand the test of the time because it's a cartoon.
Nope, I absolutely agree with this being on the list. I think this movie, in terms of its animation style, the fun that it had, and its introduction of Miles Morales to the broader audience, this movie will absolutely stand the test of time, and I think people will grow up with it. There's already going to be a sequel, and they will remember this movie very fondly. I think this will be a classic.
Okay,
definitely.
Well, that's kind of weird. Normally, don't. Apparently, you're not agreeing on this one. So number 4, Black Panther,
classic,
also from 2018. Okay,
absolute classic. I don't even need to talk about it. We'll just leave it at that. It's a classic.
Number 3, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yes, classic staple of the Marvel MCU, and one of the coolest movies they've made. Yeah, because people are going to talk about the MCU. This will always be brought up. Winter Soldier was awesome.
All right, number 2. I actually think that you are going to have issue with this one, D-Man. Wonder Woman from 2017.
Awful pick. I mean, I think that's terrible. I did not really enjoy Wonder Woman. I actually didn't really care for the movie at all. Never even saw the sequel. That's how much I liked the first one. Didn't even give the sequel a shot, and it was free. And no, I think if anything, I think Gal Gadot is great as Wonder Woman. I think that the movie itself, what it did, for putting, a female director in that position to helm, one of the biggest blockbusters of the year was great. So, in terms of the movie itself, I think there were things that it did that will be remembered. But is this movie any good? I'm going to say no. And two, put that down at 10 if you're going to put it on this. That's embarrassing to me.
No, 2's not on the list. Oh, you mean yeah. I thought you meant 1984. Yeah, I was like, yes. Okay, all right, fine. And number 1, you probably hate this one too. Avengers Endgame from 2019.
Absolute classic. Bona fide. It's probably the most classic of all comic book movies now. And that's simply because it was a can't miss tentpole moment. It's like Star Wars when it came out. And I wasn't even alive, but that's all I can imagine is that you know where you were when you saw it. You'll talk about your theater experience and you'll probably still be watching it. Absolute 2 thumbs up for that number one pick. That's amazing. I love it.
Okay. All right. Well, so what I'd like to do here is not really talk about why you're wrong because, well, we can do that when the show's over. What I would like to do is obviously the NFL draft is coming out. I would like to do a new segment on this podcast.
Okay, that's fun.
Propose we draft. Okay, we're just going to assume that the 10 comic or superhero movies listed on this list are off limits. We're not going to discuss it any further. And what I want to do is we're going to flip a coin, and you and I are going to draft what we think are the 5 superhero movies. In addition, so 10 total, each of us is going to draft 5. In addition, that is going to stand the test of time as potential classics. We will revisit this episode in like 30 years and see which of us was more right versus more wrong with our 5 picks. But that's what I want to do.
All right. So these are just any comic book movies, best comic book movies of all time.
Comic book movies. I think we should set a cap since the author does state of the modern superhero era. So he doesn't define what that goes back to. I say let's go back to, say, the last 25 years.
So what year would that be?
1998. 1998 would be 25 years ago. So, like, we're not going to get into Batman 1989. We're not going to get into the original Superman. Those are from a bygone era. It's a different style of filmmaking. What we're going to look at is, the last 25 years. Probably starting with X-Men from 1999. Anything beyond that, we'll say is good. Okay?
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So that's really the only requirement. We'll do a snake draft. So I'll flip a coin, and you're going to call it in the air and tell me what you want.
Okay.
Right. Ready?
Go ahead. Tails.
Oh, it is in fact Tails. So
D-Man
is the first pick in.
Number 1 pick, baby. And you know what I'm going with. The Dark Knight. It is my favorite comic book movie of all time. Anthony, I hate to do this to you, but it is the best Batman movie of all time. Joker, absolutely, banger of a villain. He's fantastic. Heath Ledger knocked it out of the park. But Christopher Nolan, tip of the cap. That movie is amazing. So I'm going Dark Knight.
Well, D-Man, that is a good pick. And obviously that's what I would have taken as the first pick had I won the coin toss, but I did not. So great pick.
I wondered, neither of us shared our list. So we do not know what the other person is going to pick. So I wondered what you would have picked. I think I told you that in pre-production. I was like, I am interested to hear what you would have gone with, but it is the Dark Knight. So it's a good thing I picked it.
All right. So now I'm going to get the second and the third pick, right? So for number 2, I'm going to throw out.
Wait, it's your number 1, right?
Yeah, well, it's my first pick, but it's the number 2 in the draft overall. So my first pick, Spider-Man 2 from 2004.
Oh, that's number 2 on my list. That is one of my favorite movies.
I knew you were going to take. I was like, he's either going to take Dark Knight or Spider-Man as his first pick. So that's what I got to do.
All right. Well, I'm going to. Oh, go ahead.
I still got another draft pick, buddy. So for third pick overall and my second pick, I'm going to go with with the Avengers from 2012.
You've got to be kidding me. That was literally what I was going to pick right now. Which, to me, Avengers 1 is monumental in so many ways because it finally brought comic books truly to the big screen where they have this, team up film, just like the comics. Yeah. And the moment, Marvel's ability to deliver on that moment was absolutely fantastic. If you saw that in the theaters and you weren't cheering when they all, flex in New York City when, the Chitauri are attacking, you're not a comic book fan. That was just absolutely stunning moment. It changed the future of comic book movies and films, and it's a fantastic pick. I love that.
All right. No, I agree. And I think that because it was the first major team up movie, it is going to live on in infamy for a long time. So
Okay, well, so I'm gonna actually so am I getting two picks now? We're doing Snake.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so for my number two pick, this may be a little controversial because this is a personal favorite and something that I love. It was well received, and in my opinion, it's the best of this franchise. But with number two, I'm gonna go with X-Men: Days of Future Past.
I had that on the board too. Great pick, though. Great pick.
No, it literally this is why I had to put Avengers over it. It does steal a little bit from Avengers. This is a X-Men team up movie where they're bringing together two different ensemble casts, and they do it again in a fantastic way. I love how they handle time travel in this movie. I think it's fantastic. The pacing was great. It was easy to understand. The action was pretty cool, and I love Magneto as a villain. He's fantastic.
Okay. Okay. No, that's very good.
So after X-Men, what do I want to pick? I think I'm going to go again. This is a little bit of a personal favorite. I don't think it's necessarily the best movie, but it's one that I rewatch maybe the most. And I love this movie, but I'm going to go with Iron Man from, I think it was 2008,
Ooh,
2007.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
the movie that kicked off the MCU, it rebooted Robert Downey Jr.'s career. And even though he had been in some other films, some successful films before that, this is what really launched him into the stratosphere and launched the MCU. So very, very important film, especially in regards to Marvel, but just in general for its place in comic book movie lore. Now, here's the other thing. I actually really like this movie. I think it's an easy watch. I think they do a lot of things right. I love the way Iron Man's suit looks in this movie. It actually looks like, it's a real suit made of metal, which is great, especially when you compare it to, Wakanda Forever, where they have Ironheart, that literally looks like, a CG mashup, which I just was not a fan of. I think the suit here is fantastic. And even though it does have, in my opinion, one of the weaker villains and starts off that kind of, trope of having mirror villains for the heroes, it is the first one to do it. And I'll give it a little bit of a break for that. So, the first of the MCU, but I really love Iron Man. That's a great movie.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that is a good pick. So that was your third, correct?
Yep.
So now it's going back to me. Ooh.
So you're on 3 and 4, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna pick this just because I know it's gonna piss you off because you're gonna say it has no business being this high on the list.
Can't wait.
Man of Steel 2013.
Yeah.
See, and I know it's gonna
I'm not a
bother you.
fan.
But you know what? I'm going to quote Christopher Nolan, who is someone that you respect. And as Christopher Nolan says, Man of Steel is Superman for this generation. And I think it has defined it in very many ways. That's the reason why there's a bunch of angry fans on the internet who hate or who are mad that they cut Henry Cavill. It was a Superman movie showing Superman with the modern, through the power of CG that we haven't seen before.
I mean, the way he looked when he was flying is the best yet. I mean, it was fantastic. The fight scene at the end is just epic. It's awesome. But I even love, I love, him kind of finding the Fortress of Solitude. He has that kind of communication with his, AI dad. And obviously at the time, I don't know if we knew it yet, but they were kicking off the DCEU with this movie. Although, was that announced at this point? I don't know if it was.
Kind of evolved after the movie was finished, which is I think probably why parts of it felt a little disjointed. Going into Batman versus Superman, there's kind of a logical leap that doesn't necessarily follow. Yeah.
Here's what I'll give you. I don't hate that pick, but I will admit that was not on my list.
Well, I know. But I know this next one, number 4 is, and I'm going to go with Captain America Civil War.
Ooh, yeah, that is a great movie. I do love Captain America Civil War. Again, it's not an Avengers film. And one of the things that I love about Captain America Civil War is at its heart, it truly is a Captain America movie. It's awesome. It had a real chance based on the trailer of kind of being like Avengers light. And they totally do have one of the best fight scenes in all of the MCU at the airport. But it is a Captain America movie. I mean, it just is.
It stays very true to it's about his character arc. Yep. That's one of the things that they do well in it. So
Now, is that your favorite like fight scene in the MCU? Because it's up there for me. I mean, we might have to do a list of best fight scenes in the MCU, but
I do love that. I mean, I really love. I don't know if it's just a fight scene, kind of the whole Avengers versus the invading alien army at the, you know, end of Avengers. That's pretty amazing. But it's kind of like a third of a movie. I don't know if it's even a fight scene, but it's yeah. How are we defining this fight scene? That's what we got to get into. So think about that for when we have this whole discussion next.
CP, I will say, literally in Avengers, when Tony Stark, he's in his suit now, and they open up the portal and the Chitauri start flooding in, and he swaps over his HUD on his helmet, and then he takes off going up, and he's like shooting at the Chitauri. I remember I literally in my seat, I like sat up and my eyes were so wide. I was like, this is everything I've wanted to see. Like eye candy. Like, this is amazing. So, I mean, just I mean, that's incredible.
It is. It's a good one. It's a great movie. So, all right, back to you.
No, is that okay? So you have 4?
That's my 4th pick. Yeah.
Okay, so number 4 for me, I think I'm gonna go with. Hang on, I got a list here. I just got to review for a second, make sure I pick the right one.
Yeah. You're on the clock.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Well, I guess that was on. Yeah, that was on his list. Okay,
it's on his list.
Yeah, that was on mine. But yeah, I think I just love what that did for animated comic book movies. I loved its style. I just thought it was so much fun. I'll go. So I'll stick with fun. I'm going to go with Thor Ragnarok.
Okay. All right.
I think that's the best Thor movie, and in my opinion, it's one of my favorite movies from the MCU. It's one of my favorite comic book movies. I think they struck exactly the right tone. I love how it was literally a bit of a conclusion to the arc that had been set up in Thor 1. You know, he goes from essentially not being worthy at the end of that to passing on the throne at the end of 2 and finally taking his seat on the mantle, ready to lead the Asgardians at the end of Thor Ragnarok. And I mean, it's just so much fun. They make Thor more comical. They had some great fight scenes. Him and Hulk go at it, you know, in the Gladiator Stadium. And I thought Hela even wasn't necessarily the best villain that Marvel has ever done or anything, but I thought she played it so well. You could just tell that the actress really reveled in the role and was enjoying it. And more than that, I love what she represented, which was, you know, the devastation and colonialism that Asgard had wreaked on so many civilizations in order to reap their riches. So I just thought it was a really great movie all around. It's a shame that Love and Thunder didn't live up to that billing. You know, sometimes you capture lightning in a bottle, and I think with Thor Ragnarok, lightning, Thor, well done, D-Man. They totally nailed it. And even I love when Thor just finally realizes like his power is innate and he absolutely erupts. It's just great. Love Thor Ragnarok.
Okay, I can dig it.
So final pick for me. And I think I'm going to go with another one that actually is still a lot of fun. It holds up really well. Is going to be X2 X-Men United. So I got 2 X-Men movies on the list, which is crazy. I didn't think that would happen. But you took some of the good ones, man. You know, hey, I got to respect the list. So, yeah, X2 X-Men United, I think, was the X-Men movie, especially at the time that everybody had kind of been waiting for. It was the, you know, potential realized of them announcing they're going to make live action X-Men movies. And they do so many things. They bring in, you know, at the end, there's the allusion to the Dark Phoenix story. They have, is it Stryker? Is that his name? Stryker. William Stryker. Yeah. And they have William Stryker, and they're diving into the history of Wolverine, which at that time there was so much promise because it had been announced that I think Hugh Jackman was going to star in his own standalone film. So we thought that might get explored better. It didn't really pan out, but at that time there was a ton of potential. But one of the things that I think they did really well with X-Men 1 and carries over here to X-Men 2 is just, I think they did such a good job casting the X-Men, especially at that time. They knocked that out of the park. Everybody was on their A game, and it was just a lot of fun. I even love, like, you know, Magneto as a villain. he uses his powers and he unclips all the grenades, and they all, you're like, dude, this guy's crazy. Like, you didn't have to do that, but that's
Dude,
how he
and
rolls.
I love the opening scene of X2 with Nightcrawler and the White
Oh,
House. I'm like,
yes,
so
amazing.
amazing. That's exactly what you want with a cool character like that. They totally capture it.
I totally agree with you. That's awesome.
Good pick. All right, so I'm on my number 5. I'm torn. I guess the challenge is what's going to live up to in terms of audience. And all right, I'm going this
Remember,
one.
it's supposed to be a classic. It's not just your
No,
favorite. Do you
no,
think
no.
it'll reach classic status here?
Okay. I think that this is going to be like the guy, like the 6th-round pick from like the Division 2 school. Okay. This is not on your list.
Yeah, tell me
But
you wouldn't have picked Tom Brady if you were drafting. Just
I guarantee you this one is going to be a cult classic. 2017 Lego Batman.
oh, what a pick. Oh my gosh, we ended up with 2 animated comic book movies here.
Yeah.
Wow, I have seen Lego Batman, and I kind of agree with you. I think there's an entire generation of kids that saw this.
And if you're a true Batman fan, I mean, it is such a great homage to everything that has been kind of brought forth in the world of the Dark Knight, the history of the films, everything. The writers so understood the character of Batman that I think it's going to live a long time in the Batman fan community. So
that pick I really like. I think that is that you knocked that one out of the park. And wow, you brought it up on the 5. So that's a steal. I think that'll definitely be a movie that people watch. They'll share it with their kids. I think that movie's going to be around. Yeah, I totally agree. And I do want to correct myself. I said there's 2 animated movies on this list, but there's actually only that one because Into the Spider-Verse was on the author's list.
Yeah. So in the list of the 20, yes, it's on 2. On the list of 10 that we created, there's only the 1 animated, which is still kind of weird because, I suppose we could have picked The Incredibles or, whatever.
Well, I didn't put The Incredibles on my list. I probably should have asked you, although that might have been
I don't like
hint.
The Incredibles.
Oh, I love The Incredibles.
I hate it.
I think it's a great movie, but I mean, it has comic book vibes. It's about superheroes, but it's not based on a comic book, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Well, anyway, CP, fantastic list. This was actually a lot of fun. Thank you for bringing a new segment to the show.
Figured we'd try
cool.
something different. And audience, if you liked us arguing over our draft choices, then let us know. Maybe we'll do it again. This might be something that I think I really would like to do if we have a guest. That would be really a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, and be sure to share your lists with us. So again, we said 25 years, but really starting with X-Men and to present day. But you can just let us know what your top 5 picks would be, or if you would like to pick what is remaining and send that list as well, you can. So either way, we would love to hear from you guys and see what your kind of favorite, classic comic book movies are from the last 25 years. That would be incredible. CP, that actually does it for our show this week. So I hope you had fun listening to the podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to continue the conversations on social media, as well as, if you want, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or the podcast directory of your choice. We always appreciate that. It helps us rank a little bit higher. You can follow everything Filmmakers Compass at filmmakerscompass.com or at Film Comp Podcast on social media. And you can follow me at Big Kid D-Man and CP.
You can follow me at NDCal5. Thank you again for checking out this week's episode of Filmmakers Compass Podcast. We will see you back here next week. And until then, keep watching movies.
I'm so glad you're doing the outro again.